On March 8th, a boxing match between Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou took place, which predictably ended with Joshua's victory. Anthony did not play with Francis and immediately got down to business. In the first attack, Joshua delivered a powerful right through his arm and sent Ngannou to the canvas. Francis stood up, but it was clear that he had no chance. After a short pause, Anthony hit a powerful combination again, and Ngannou ended up on the floor. Francis stood up again, but only to miss the final attack. The result is the expected victory of Anthony Joshua by knockout in the second round. But few people know that the Cameroonian fled Africa, endured grief and suffering, spent the night on the streets of Paris, and eventually became a UFC champion. Ngannou's life story is a ready-made script for a Hollywood movie, in which dizzying plot twists go one after another. Now we will tell you the biography of Francis Ngannou, one of the most formidable knockouts of our time, and the man who changed the rules of the game. In the world of martial arts, Francis Ngannou was born on September 5, 1986, in the Cameroonian village of Beti to a poor family of Emmanuel Faso and Mama Ngannou. The boy's parents divorced when he was 6 years old. Francis' parents split up for a reason. Faso is a tough street fighter who sometimes practiced punches at home on his wife and children. At the age of 15, the father of the predator died after an illness. Already at an early age, Francis understood what violence and cruelty are. The boy moved a lot, lived with relatives who had their own problems. In an interview, Ngannou admitted that he always wanted to have a normal family and friends whom he really needed. The boy constantly had to fight on the street. Although Francis himself did not like to conflict, some local gangs wanted to recruit Ngannou into their ranks. The guy refused. Francis wanted to get a proper education. All schools in Cameroon were paid, but the boy's family did not have the money to educate their son. He couldn't afford a pen and a notebook, so he didn't write anything down, but tried to memorize it. Ngannou was constantly expelled for failing grades. He changed 5 different schools. At the age of 10, the Cameroonian returned to his mother and got a job in a sand quarry in Batia. Francis threw sand into the back of the truck and sometimes stood for hours in knee-deep water when he scooped sand out of the riverbed. Ngannou did not always receive money for work on time, and sometimes he did not receive it at all. Ngannou worked in quarries until the age of 17, and then left for the city of Douala, where he worked as a loader. Francis had always dreamed of boxing, and there was no sports section in his hometown. He watched Mike Tyson's fights over and over again. In his spare time, Ngannou wanted to become a world champion, which caused only evil grins from others. Francis sold almost all his possessions, including a moped, and bought boxing equipment. At the age of 22, the fighter found a small gym where he sometimes trained. The predator played sports at every opportunity, until at the age of 25 he was diagnosed with hepatitis B. Francis did not have the money for treatment, so he returned to Batir to buy medicines. The athlete bred pigs, and then it seemed that Ngannou would stop boxing forever. After watching the movie 300 Spartans, The Cameroonian realized that even if the whole world is against you, this is not a reason to put up with it. Gradually, the disease receded, and Ngannou made a fateful decision. Francis decided to take a desperate step. He didn't tell anyone anything, packed a backpack, and went to Europe to practice boxing and perform in the ring. In 2 days, Ngannou crossed Nigeria and ended up in Niger, where Cameroonians needed a visa. The police had questions for the emigrant, but he was able to avoid prison. Francis found a man who agreed to take him across the desert. There were a lot of people who wanted to escape from Africa. 25 people boarded a car and drove for a whole day through the hot Sahara. Cramped, unbearable heat, and only one chance in a million of success. If the refugees were caught, they would be sent to prison. If the car had stalled, 25 people would have died of hunger and thirst. Ngannou was lucky. He got to Algeria and got to Morocco using a fake passport. In Morocco, a Cameroonian found himself in a special camp built by Europeans to contain the huge flow of migrants. Ngannou managed to slip through the fence with cameras and tracking sensors. Only on the 7th attempt, the fighter waited out the winter in the forest and then, together with other migrants, boarded a boat and went to Europe. Halfway there, the refugees got through to the Red Cross, and the organization sent a ship to help in order not to be sent back. The predator got rid of the documents, which is why there is constant debate about how old the Cameroonian really is. Ngannou was brought to Spain, where he spent 2 more months in isolation due to illegal border crossing. When the young man was released, he could safely move around the country. Ngannou's journey from Cameroon to Europe took a long 14 months. Francis spoke only French and chose Paris as the next point on the path to his dream. Ngannou had no money, spent several months sleeping on the streets, parking lots, and sometimes ate out of trash cans. During the day, the Cameroonian was looking for a gym where he could practice boxing. The search led the future UFC champion to Didier Carmen, who helped the wanderer with money, arranged for free training sessions, and allowed him to spend the night in the gym. The Carmona Hall was closed on weekends and holidays, and then Francis met Fernand Lopez, who was also from Cameroon. Lopez provided the heavyweight with equipment, clothes, and put a bed in the hall. Fernand advised his ward to take up MMA, although Ngannou did not even know what it was like in those years. Since 2013, the amazing path of the Cameroonian in the world of mixed martial arts has begun. In the same 2013, Ngannou made his professional debut, defeating Rashid Gasoline in the first round. However, in the second match, Francis was defeated. But this only motivated him more. Francis signed a contract with the UFC in 2015. Ngannou approached his first fight in the UFC with Luis Enrique with a 5-1 record. In the second round, the Predator knocked out his opponent. In general, Francis is called the most dangerous fighter in the world because of his knockout power. If you look at the statistics, you can see that Ngannou won only once by a judicial decision, and the remaining 16 victories were one ahead of schedule. On March 27, 2021, Francis still managed to fulfill his dream. At UFC 260 and a duel against American Stipe Miocic, Ngannou brutally knocked out the former heavyweight champion and became the title holder, while Ngannou became the UFC champion. Another pupil of Fernand Lopez, Cyril Gane, was rapidly gaining momentum. The fighters sparred with each other for a while, but then Francis left the team after quarreling with Lopez at the end of 2020, and Ngannou's former coach gave an interview in which he called his former ward ungrateful and lazy. Then Lopez posted a video of a sparring match between Ngannou and Gane, in which Cyril's advantage was noticeable. The fact that Lopez and his ward finally quarreled became clear after the UFC 268 tournament. Then Francis walked next to his coach and did not even look in his direction, and it was Gane who became Ngannou's next opponent. The UFC actively tried to warm up this confrontation, but the fighters treated each other with respect. In January 2022, at the UFC 270 tournament, Lopez's former and current students met in a cage in a principled confrontation. In the first 2 rounds, the good guy processed the opponent in the rack, but then the predator unexpectedly revealed his struggle to the world. In the remaining time, Francis made for transfers, gained more than 8 minutes of control, and took the victory by unanimous decision. So Ngannou defended the belt for the first time, established himself as the star of the organization and the best heavyweight on the planet. But in the UFC, the Cameroonian knockout did not fight anymore. In January 2023, Francis left Dana White's promotion and in May signed a crazy contract with PFL. There, Ngannou was not only allowed to fight according to the rules of boxing, but also appointed him in charge of PFL Africa. In addition, Predator will fight in the new Super Division, where fighters will receive large percentages of the PPVs sold. There has never been such an agreement in the world of martial arts. Francis took the chance and took a step towards his dream to perform according to the rules of boxing. The most famous heavyweight of our time, Tyson Fury, agreed to meet the Cameroonian in the ring. It is noteworthy that Ngannou is being prepared by his idol, Mike Tyson, for a duel with the Gypsy King, a professional boxing match between WBC World Heavyweight Champion Tyson Fury and former UFC Champion Francis Ngannou. The fight took place on October 28, 2023 in Riyadh. The fight was a 10-round one with no titles at stake. Tyson Fury won by split decision. On the night of March 8th to 9th, a grand boxing evening took place at the Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Its main characters were Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. Fans were waiting for a fiery battle, but in the end they were shocked by a deft knockout, in which the former UFC champion flew away in the second round. Francis does not forget about his roots. He visits Badir, opened a gym, and is engaged in charity work. Ngannou went to the goal for a long time and always believed in himself. In a fight with Fury, Francis has almost no chance of success, but it doesn't matter. The Predator has already won in this life. He defied fate, escaped from poverty, did not break down under the yoke of circumstances in order to succeed.